Get her out of my cabin. She doesn't look like a first-class passenger." The voice didn't shake. It struck. Captain Claire Nolan delivered the sentence like a verdict, not a mistake. She stood just feet away from seat 2A, blocking the aisle with her body and her bias. In front of her stood a black woman in jeans and a plain black t-shirt, boarding pass in hand, expression calm. Claire didn't blink. She simply folded her arms and waited for the woman to be removed. What Claire didn't know, what she hadn't even bothered to check, was that the woman she was dismissing as an intruder wasn't just a passenger, she was the owner of the entire jet. Before we go deeper into this story, I want to know, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments. Because this isn't just about one flight. It's about what happens when quiet power meets open bias and refuses to back down. This story could take place anywhere, and when it does, the person in the aisle might just be someone like you. At 2:10 a.m. on May 29th, Amara Tate boarded her own Gulfstream G650 at a private terminal in Chicago. The terminal was polished and silent, the air crisp with the sterile luxury of corporate aviation. Amara wore no makeup, no jewelry, no badge. She didn't want recognition. She wanted truth. She had designed this entire trip as a covert test. Her billion-dollar company, Starcrest Ventures, had recently acquired the charter firm running this very jet. Reports of discrimination had reached her desk. Nothing confirmed, just patterns, language, choices. And tonight, she was going to see them up close. The second she stepped into the cabin, Claire moved. The captain wasn't in the cockpit where she belonged. She was on patrol. Her eyes scanned the boarding line and landed on Amara like a target. Claire approached, her mouth set, and held out a hand. "Proof of premium status," she said. "No greeting, no welcome." Amara handed over the boarding pass, a fully valid one generated internally for this operation. Claire looked at it like it was counterfeit, then tossed it aside. "You're not on the verified list," she snapped. "You need to leave the cabin." "I'm seated in 2A," Amara said evenly. "It's right here." Claire stepped closer. "Not anymore." Before Amara could respond, a man across the aisle stood up. White, mid-40s, dark blazer, sharp watch, Edward Vance. He reached over Amara's arm, grabbed her black leather briefcase from the seat beside her, and dropped it roughly by her feet. "Don't clutter first class," he muttered. "This isn't the subway." He sat down in 2B and didn't look back. His fake VIP badge flashed under the light as he settled into the seat with the confidence of someone used to being believed. Claire crossed her arms tighter. "We don't have time for confusion. Please exit until we can verify your status." Amara raised her phone. "Tara," she said quietly, "start Protocol 6. On the other end of the line, Tara Lynn's voice came through clearly. "Ready and waiting, ma'am." Jade Parker, 26, sat diagonally across from them, a freelance journalist who had spent enough time in airports to know what this was. She leaned toward her seatmate. "She didn't do anything wrong," she whispered. "They're just assuming." Edward scoffed. "It's called private aviation. There are standards." Amara turned to face him. "Say that again," he smirked. "Try economy. That's more your level." He tore a small sheet from his notebook, scribbled something, and flicked it toward her tray table. The note said, "Try economy." Jade caught sight of it and repeated the words aloud. "Seriously?" she said. Amara picked up the note, folded it cleanly, slid it into the seat pocket in front of her. Claire's voice rang out. "You're holding up the flight. This isn't some charity." Amara didn't move. "You'll want to take that tone back," she said, "because in a few minutes, The person you're trying to remove will become the one removing you." Claire tilted her head and laughed. "Is that a threat?" "No," Amara said. "It's a timeline." Lily Marsh, the flight attendant, peeked out from the galley and added, "She's not verified. I checked." No one had seen her check anything. "Tara," Amara said into the phone, "log every word from this point forward." "Already logging," Tara replied. Passengers were beginning to stir, not loudly, just that quiet ripple of tension when the truth starts to reach the edges of the room. Claire barked, "You're not scanned, not listed, not cleared. This is your last warning." Amara nodded. "Then let the record show you were warned too." Edward rolled his eyes and sank back into his seat. "You people always have to make it a scene." Jade stood up. "No, you're making it a scene. She's just standing there." Amara turned to her. "Thank you." Jade nodded. "I saw everything. So did everyone else." Claire turned back toward the cockpit. "Get her out of here," she said, not even addressing anyone specific. Just a command. Just a dismissal. Amara stayed put. She looked at Claire with the kind of patience that makes tyrants nervous. The kind of calm that doesn't come from being afraid, but from knowing exactly how the next 30 minutes are going to unfold. Silence settled again. But this time, it wasn't empty. It was full. With pressure. With judgment. With people realizing they were about to witness something they'd remember for the rest of their lives. And while Claire smiled, certain she was still in control, and Edward tapped his phone with smug satisfaction, Amara waited, not for permission, not for justice, for timing, because she already had the power, and in 29 minutes, she'd use it. "Security has been notified," Claire said, loud enough for the entire cabin to hear. "Unverified boarding. Possible breach." Her voice was crisp, clinical, and completely confident, like she was announcing turbulence, not targeting a black woman in plain clothing. But what made the sentence cut deeper wasn't the volume. It was the way she said possible breach while staring Amara down, as if her presence alone was the violation. Amara didn't move. She stood at seat 2A with her phone to her ear, listening to Tara's calm voice feed in quietly. "I've escalated to Protocol 6B, Tara said. "Confirmed tracking. Claire's now made 3 public claims of invalid access." Amara responded just as calmly. "Continue logging. No interruption." Across the aisle. Edward Vance leaned sideways in his seat again, addressing the nearest passenger with a voice just loud enough to carry, "I'm not trying to be rude, but if you can't afford to fly right, you shouldn't fake it." He shrugged as if the entire situation was inconvenient for him, as though Amara's presence was slowing down his travel plans, as though she were stealing a luxury someone like him had earned. "You don't even know her name," Jade said sharply. She was still standing, hands by her sides, eyes fixed on Claire. "And you don't get to decide who belongs up here." Claire looked Jade over, unimpressed. "Ma'am, sit down. This is a security matter now." "No," Jade said. "This is a bias matter." Lily reappeared from the galley and spoke with unearned authority. "She's been flagged as non-premium. Not on our list. Not on record." "She was never scanned," Jade replied. "You never gave her a chance?" Amara didn't turn. She spoke softly into her phone again. "Tara, note the statement. Flagged as non-premium and indicate lack of digital verification. There's no tablet in use, no scanner, no confirmation process." "Logged," Tara said. "Forwarded to internal compliance. I'm also alerting corporate ethics." Claire, growing impatient, called toward the cockpit. "Brian, get out here." First Officer Brian Holt emerged with a frown, rubbing his temple like he'd been dragged into a mess that didn't interest him. He looked at Amara for 2 seconds, then turned to Claire. "What's going on?" "She's claiming first-class boarding without verification. It's delaying departure," Claire said. Brian didn't ask for proof. He didn't even look at Amara. He simply nodded and said, "Call security then." That one sentence opened the floodgates. Jade turned to the other passengers. "Are we really going to sit here and watch this? She hasn't raised her voice. She hasn't moved from her seat. She hasn't done anything." Another passenger, an older black man near the back, nodded and said, "I've seen this before. Different gate, same game." Claire waved him off. "Let's not turn this into something it isn't." "It already is," Amara said. Edward jumped in again. "She's probably with ground crew, lost, confused." Amara tilted her head slightly and spoke into her phone. "Tara, include Edward Vance's remarks under verbal misconduct, log tone and content." "Logged," Tara replied, unshaken. Claire sighed loudly. "You people love making a scene." Brian stiffened. Even he recognized how badly that would read later. He glanced at Claire, then at Lily, then finally at Amara. "We don't have time for this." "You already made time," Amara said. "What you're wasting is your credibility." Jade had had enough. "You're not going to throw her off this plane." "We're not?" Claire asked, turning slowly. "Are you in charge now?" Amara tapped her phone again. "Tara, proceed to 6C. Tell corporate to ready a compliance callback." Tara responded immediately. "Message delivered. Internal ethics has been alerted. They're monitoring the situation now." Edward scoffed. "Who is she even calling? Her cousin?" "No," Amara said. "My executive assistant." Brian rubbed his eyes. "Claire, this is escalating fast." "You think?" Jade snapped. "Because you're targeting someone for looking too ordinary in first class." Claire looked around the cabin. The energy had shifted, not in her favor. There were too many stares now, too many whispers, too many people noticing her certainty had no foundation, that her commands had no procedure. And that's when she snapped. She grabbed Amara's briefcase again, this time from the floor where Edward had dropped it earlier, and tossed it toward the rear of the cabin. "This," she said, "is unclaimed junk." The cabin gasped, not from the motion, but from the word junk. Amara took a slow step forward. Her voice was still calm, still even. "You just called my work junk." "Claire." Claire shrugged. "If you had real credentials, you wouldn't be standing here trying to prove them. You'd already be gone." Amara raised her phone once more. "Tara, escalate to final level. Notify all regional ops. We're proceeding with live compliance reporting." Jade turned again. "What is that? What does that mean?" "It means," Amara said, "they're about to find out who's really delaying this flight." And then came the medium twist. Another passenger, a younger white man in a gray suit, stood up in row 3. "She's right. I saw everything. The boarding pass was real. I watched Claire toss it." Claire paled slightly. "That's not what happened." "Yes," he said, louder this time. "It is." A third passenger raised her voice. "She asked you to scan it. You didn't. You just dismissed her." Lily tried to jump in. "They're not staff. They don't understand the protocols." "They understand enough," Amara said. "They watched everything." Claire glared. "This is insubordination." "No," Amara replied. "This is Starcrest Aviation, and you're destroying its name from the inside." She walked toward her briefcase, bent down, and picked it up herself. She returned to seat 2A without asking permission. Claire didn't move. Brian didn't speak. And in that moment, for the first time, the crew realized they were no longer in control. "Then prove it," Claire snapped. Prove you belong in first class. Prove you're not some assistant sneaking in behind her boss." The words came fast now, laced with something uglier than protocol, resentment, maybe even fear. Captain Claire Nolan stood rigid near the galley wall, her voice cutting across the quiet cabin. "You want to keep that seat, sweetheart? Then show us your net worth." A beat of silence followed, so complete it made the hum of the ventilation system feel like thunder. Amara Tate didn't blink. She remained seated, legs crossed, phone still resting against her ear. From the other end, Tara's voice came in steady. "Still logging. Claire just demanded a personal wealth verification. Compliance escalation complete." "I'm not showing you anything," Amara said softly, eyes locked on Claire. "Because I don't answer to small people with loud voices." Edward let out a theatrical laugh. "Oh, she's a philosopher now. Terrific." He turned in his seat, waving his hand toward Amara like she was clutter. "She doesn't even have a last name. You hear how vague she is? Just another coach flyer playing rich." Claire stepped forward, jaw tight. "That's it. I'm done playing games. Lily, call security, now." Lily Marsh didn't hesitate. "Copy. On the call." She vanished behind the galley partition, already speaking into the phone. Moments later, the rear cabin door clicked open. A tall, broad-shouldered man stepped in, eyes sweeping the passengers like they were suspects. Ryan Cole, 36, Starcrest Aviation's in-house security lead, wore a dark tactical blazer with a nameplate over the chest. His voice was clipped, neutral, and cold. "We've received a report of unauthorized boarding." Claire gestured with both hands. "That's her. Right there. Seat 2A, refusing to leave, non-compliant." Ryan moved toward Amara with slow, measured steps. "Ma'am, I'm going to need to see identification. Immediately." Amara didn't rise. "You'll need to state the violation first." "You've been flagged as unverified," Ryan said, reaching for the tablet holstered at his belt. "There's no record of any scan," Jade said, rising again from her seat. "She had a valid pass. We all saw it." "She's making this up," Edward said, chuckling under his breath. "Next, she'll say she owns the plane." Another passenger, a black woman in her early 20s, stood up near the rear. She hadn't spoken until now. Her voice was small, but it carried. "Why is it always people who look like us?" Claire turned to her. "Sit down, now." "I just wanted to know," she said, "because I didn't get scanned either." That was the moment Amara's eyes met hers. "Sana, right?" Amara said gently. "Sana Miles?" The young woman nodded, clearly startled. "You're a designer? Jewelry? You had a client meeting in Atlanta yesterday?" Sana nodded again. How did you know that?" "I read your profile last week," Amara said, "and I invited you on this flight." Sana blinked. "You did?" Amara turned back to Claire. "Tell me again who's verified." Ryan shifted slightly. "Captain, we may need to pause," Claire barked. "No, she's challenging flight command. That's a removal offense." Ryan didn't respond right away. His eyes darted between Claire and Amara. Then he stepped closer to the seat. "Ma'am," he said quietly, "please remove your scarf and step into the aisle." Amara looked up at him, then slowly loosened the silk scarf around her neck. Ryan reached for her elbow to guide her up. It wasn't violent, but it wasn't gentle either. "Don't touch her!" Jade shouted. "Hands off!" another passenger yelled. Ryan paused. Dozens of eyes were now trained on him. Amara stood under her own power. Her voice never rose. "Ryan, you just crossed a line that cannot be uncrossed." "I'm following procedure," he said. "No." Amara replied, "You're following orders from someone who's already out of one." Claire stepped back, sensing the tide had turned, but Brian Holt, the first officer, was already breaking. "Enough," he said suddenly, loudly. "Everyone stop." The cabin froze. Claire looked at him, confused. "Brian, what are you doing?" He exhaled shakily. "We need to tell the truth. All of it." Claire's voice dropped. "Brian, not now." "Yes, now," he snapped. "I'm not going down for this." He turned toward the passengers. Lily pushed the security call without checking the manifest. Brian admitted, "There were no scans, no logs." Claire told her to flag the passenger as disruptive before we even took off. Claire's face went pale. "I told her not to," Brian added, "but she said this woman looked suspicious, and that if she didn't belong, we'd find out fast." Jade gasped. "You admitted that? Out loud?" Brian nodded slowly. "I can't lie anymore. I won't." Claire lunged forward. "That's not what happened." Amara raised a single hand. "Let her speak," she said. Claire froze. Amara turned toward the aisle, back straight. Her scarf hung loosely from her hand now. Her voice didn't need volume. It had gravity. "My name is Amara Tate," she said, looking at Ryan, then Brian, then Claire. "And you've all made a mistake that will cost you dearly," Jade whispered. "Wait, Tate?" Sana's eyes widened. "You're that Amara Tate?" Edward chuckled nervously. "She's bluffing." Brian shook his head. "She's not." Amara took a single step forward. "I own Starcrest Aviation. Every seat, every engine, every protocol. Claire, Brian, Lily, Ryan, I am your employer, and this flight isn't going anywhere until I say it does." Claire opened her mouth, then closed it. Ryan slowly took a step back. Lily disappeared into the galley again, and for the first time all night, Edward was silent. Passengers began murmuring, stunned, furious, relieved. A slow ripple of outrage filled the cabin. Jade sat down heavily, overwhelmed. She was right the whole time. Amara turned back to her seat, picked up her phone, and said clearly, "Tara, confirm authority." Tara's voice came through like steel. "Confirmed. CEO Tate. Full Starcrest Aviation Authority verified. We're with you." Claire's face flushed as Amara's declaration settled like thunder in the luxury cabin. No one spoke, but the silence wasn't empty. It was thick with exposure. Brian's confession still hung in the air, the final nail in the crew's credibility. Claire's jaw twitched, and then she doubled down. "You think naming yourself changes anything? This plane runs on protocol. I'm still the captain of this flight." Amara didn't flinch. She didn't argue. She simply raised her phone again and said, "Tara, move to Phase 3. Begin full verbal enforcement." Tara replied instantly. "Authority acknowledged. Regional operations on standby." Claire scoffed. "You don't give orders here." But the power had already shifted. Amara turned to the cabin and addressed the passengers directly. "If any of you have experienced or witnessed misconduct on this flight, racial, verbal, or otherwise, speak now or remain silent under it." Jade stood first. "You've been profiled and mocked in front of us, and I watched your boarding pass get ignored." The older black man in row 5 added, "This isn't the first time I've seen something like this. It needs to stop." One by one, voices joined. Claire raised her hand, trying to restore order, but it was too late. The passengers had become a chorus. Lily returned from the galley, visibly flustered. "Corporate can't override flight deck command," she stammered. "You're causing disruption," Amara replied calmly. "I'm correcting it." Then she looked past Lily, her eyes landing on Sana Miles, the young black designer now shifting nervously near the rear lavatory. Claire's voice cut through the noise again, sharp and sudden. "We need this one identified. 2. She's not logged either." Sana froze. "Excuse me?" Claire stepped toward her. We're confirming all unauthorized boarders. You didn't scan either, correct? Sana looked panicked. You never asked me to. I was told I was on the manifest. Told by who? Claire demanded. By someone who invited me, Sana said, voice trembling. Amara stepped between them. That would be me. Claire's eyes narrowed. So now you're handing out premium access like party favors? Amara didn't answer. She simply looked to Ryan, who still stood awkwardly near the cockpit wall. Ryan, she said, are you going to allow this? Ryan hesitated. Captain Nolan is still technically. I'm invoking owner override, Amara said. Now, Ryan looked frozen. He glanced at Brian, who stared at the floor. Then, with visible reluctance, Ryan reached for his radio. Owner override initiated, he said. Jet grounded pending internal directive. Claire's face went white. You're making a mistake, she hissed. Amara turned toward her. You already did. Without warning, Claire stepped forward, eyes wild. You don't belong in aviation, she snarled. You bought your way in. You don't understand what it means to run a flight. People like you. And that was the last line Claire would speak as captain, because before she could finish, Amara turned toward her fully and said, That's enough. Ryan, escort her to the forward jump seat. She is relieved of command, Claire barked. Ryan, don't you dare. But Ryan was already moving. Captain, I'm going to need you to comply. This is illegal, Claire screamed. You're finished. No, Amara said coldly. You are. Claire resisted, stepping backward, but Ryan blocked her path. She made one last attempt to take control, yelling to the passengers, You're being misled. She's faking this. Jade stood. We saw the badge. We heard the assistant. She owns this jet. You're just loud. Claire pointed at Jade, furious. You're encouraging mutiny. But no one listened anymore. Lily slumped into a side seat, avoiding eye contact. Brian sank into the galley, hands shaking, and Sana, still stunned, was approached by Amara, who said quietly, You didn't deserve that. You're a guest, not a suspect. Sana nodded, swallowing tears. Thank you. Then came the twist no one expected. Ryan paused, then looked at Amara and said, There's something you should know. The cabin went still. Ryan lowered his voice. Before the acquisition, this crew ran their own audit system. Claire had Lily mark certain names for scrutiny, names that didn't look premium. It was never written down, but it happened. A lot. Amara stared at him. Are you saying this wasn't the first time? No, ma'am, Ryan said. And the reports were always blocked before reaching higher management. Claire controlled that channel. Amara turned toward Tara on her phone. Tara, confirm. Do we have a history of blocked complaints from this aircraft ID? Tara replied. Yes, 15 cases flagged, all linked to Nolan and Marsh, filed by passengers but never processed. Most were dismissed verbally, then marked as resolved without action. The air turned heavy. Claire screamed from the front jump seat. This is a setup! Amara didn't even look at her. This is accountability, she said. And it's long overdue, passengers murmured again, this time not in confusion, but in shared clarity. What they had witnessed tonight wasn't just a mistake. It was a system exposed, a pattern broken open. Amara turned to Sana again and said, You were never here by accident. You're here to see what justice looks like when someone refuses to stay quiet. Sana nodded slowly. Jade said, What happens next? Amara looked around the cabin, steady and composed. Now, she said, we clean house. Amara stood at the center of the cabin like a storm that had finally stilled. The tension hadn't vanished. It had crystallized, suspended in the air between the crew and the passengers. Slowly, deliberately. She reached into the side pocket of her briefcase and pulled out a slim leather folder. Inside was a single page, one that bore the embossed seal of Starcrest Ventures and her name in bold across the top. She stepped forward, held the document at eye level, and said in a voice clear enough to cut through steel, "My name is Amara Tate. I am the founder and CEO of Starcrest Ventures. I own Starcrest Aviation in full. Every plane, every crew contract, every operational policy, including the one that empowers me to dismiss staff on the spot in cases of confirmed misconduct." She paused for one breath, one heartbeat, and then turned to face the people who had humiliated her. Claire Nolan, Brian Holt, Lily Marsh, Ryan Cole, you are all terminated from Starcrest Aviation, effective immediately. Claire let out a strangled laugh. "You're bluffing." Amara handed the folder to Jade, who read it silently, then nodded and said, "It's real." Claire's smirk faltered. "You can't do this. There's a process." "There was a process," Amara interrupted. "You ignored it. You abused it. You falsified it. And then you weaponized it against the very people you were meant to serve. Your process ends today." Lily stood frozen in the galley, mouth trembling. I was just following orders." "That excuse doesn't work anymore," Amara said calmly. "You didn't just follow them. You carried them out with pride." Brian slumped into the jump seat. "I didn't want this to happen. I told Claire to stop." Amara looked at him. "Then why didn't you report her?" He didn't answer. She turned back to Claire. "You sabotaged my company from inside. You fed your bitterness into every flight, every interaction, every decision. And when you were challenged, you chose arrogance over accountability." Claire's jaw clenched. "You want me gone? Fine. But don't pretend you're perfect." "I'm not," Amara said. "But I am accountable. And I'm done letting people like you rot systems from the inside while calling it protocol." Edward tried to speak up again. "I had nothing to do with this." Amara turned her gaze toward him like a closing door. "Mr. Vance, you verbally harassed me, touched my belongings, spread lies about my identity, and attempted to degrade another guest in front of a full cabin. Your presence on any Starcrest aircraft is banned for life, and your firm will be notified." Edward stood slowly, holding his hands up in mock surrender. "I'll walk, no problem. I don't fly with amateurs anyway." "You fly with cowards," Jade said, not looking at him. As Edward moved to leave, the remaining passengers murmured, none of them looking away. And then the huge twist began to surface. Amara turned to Lily. "Is there anything else you'd like to share before you go?" Lily hesitated. Her face crumpled slightly, and then she blurted out, "There were more." The cabin hushed again. "More what?" Amara asked. Lily looked down. "More complaints. At least 15. Claire told me to log them verbally, then delete the entries. Passengers who didn't look. Premium. She said they were trying to game the system. And Brian, he knew." All eyes shifted to Brian. He didn't deny it. He just closed his eyes. "I didn't think anyone would listen. But you heard them," Amara said. "And you stayed quiet." She turned back to Lily. "And you concealed them." Lily nodded slowly. "I did. I'm sorry." Amara stared at her. "Do you understand what that means? What it cost?" "Yes," Lily said. "Too late," Amara replied. "You don't get to rewrite it now." She turned toward Tara, still on the phone. "Confirm Lily Marsh's direct involvement in complaint suppression." Tara's voice came through steady. "Confirmed. All complaint metadata logged through flight ID A7823. Matches crew signature and security chain." "And the suppression protocol?" Amara asked. "Linked directly to crew access, not company policy." Tara said, "Corporate compliance ready to receive verbal testimony. Proceed." Amara replied. "Send summaries to internal audit, full logs, no redactions." Tara confirmed. "Moving now." Amara walked back to the center of the aisle, facing the remaining passengers. "To everyone who watched this unfold, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that this happened at all. I created Starcrest Aviation to be a different kind of service, one built on dignity, access, and respect. And tonight, that vision was betrayed by the very people entrusted to protect it." Jade rose again, voice steadier now. "But you also stood your ground. That mattered." The older black man in row 5 nodded. "You cleaned house without raising your voice. That mattered more," Sana whispered. "You turned this flight into a reckoning." Amara looked at her. "And that's only the beginning." Then she walked toward the cockpit door, not to fly, not to escape, but to take ownership, fully and openly, of what had almost been stolen from her. The system, the brand, the standard, and she would rebuild it all. This time with her eyes wide open, with the crew dismissed and the cabin silent. Amara returned to her seat, but not to rest. There was still work to do, real work. She raised her phone and spoke calmly. "Tara, we're initiating the Starcrest Equity Program now, full scope. I want it announced to every active aircraft by sunrise." Tara didn't pause. Drafting internal bulletin. Headline, "Equity begins with eyes open." Amara nodded slightly, then stood and addressed the passengers. "Tonight is not the end. Tonight is the beginning. Starcrest Aviation will undergo immediate reform. Every crew member, on every route, will complete mandatory equity training. Passenger interaction logs will now be subject to verbal audits by regional directors, and any flagged behavior, of any kind, will be reviewed by an independent ethics panel. No exceptions." The passengers began to murmur again, not in shock, but in support. Jade spoke up from her seat. "That's the airline I want to fly with." A few others clapped softly, followed by a ripple of quiet nods. Amara continued. "We will also launch an anonymous reporting line for passengers and employees alike. Retaliation will not be tolerated, and for those who feel overlooked, unheard, or invisible. We hear you now." She turned back toward the cockpit and added, "This aircraft will remain grounded until a new crew is dispatched. Every protocol going forward will operate with oversight from my executive office." Tara's voice returned in her earpiece. "Compliance teams are aligning with HR. Claire's historical behavior pattern has been corroborated with internal review. We're scanning Brian's personnel file next," Amara said. "If you find any reference to concealed audits, flag it red. I want all of it exposed." But then came the massive twist. Another voice entered the conversation. One Amara hadn't heard all evening. Ryan, the recently dismissed security lead, stepped into the aisle slowly, hands raised to show he meant no harm. "Ms. Tate," he began, "I know I'm out, and I accept that, but I need to be honest about something else, something worse." Amara didn't interrupt. She motioned for him to speak. "Lily and we were supposed to report on audit compliance to regional ops." Ryan said, "She told me she was doing it. I believed her. But earlier this month, I saw her editing crew files manually, removing bias flags from reports that came in anonymously. I confronted her. She told me Claire asked her to sanitize the logs so Starcrest wouldn't look politically soft to charter clients. I didn't report it. I should have, and I'm sorry." The cabin went dead still. Jade looked stunned. Sana was shaking her head. Amara stared at Ryan, not with rage, but with a silence so sharp it seemed to burn. "You let her alter the record," she said. You allowed deliberate erasure of passenger experiences. I did, Ryan said quietly. Because I thought keeping internal peace was better than shaking the tree. But tonight, you reminded me that silence is part of the problem. Tara's voice came through Amara's earpiece again. Confirmed. We just found 4 files with digital fingerprints matching Lily's admin ID, all listed under suppressed flags. She removed incident tags from 3 minority passenger cases. The files were marked, resolved, no bias. That's code we've never approved. Amara stood taller. Prepare a full forensic review if any passengers were denied follow-up. I want outreach initiated, public apology, refunds, everything. Understood, Tara said. Audit team is mobilizing. Amara turned back to the passengers. This is what change looks like. Not just statements, not just slogans, systems. Jade stood again. You said people like us deserve to be seen, heard, protected. You meant it. Amara nodded. Because I've been the girl at the gate they tried to push aside. And I've been the woman in the boardroom they tried to ignore. And I've been the owner they never imagined was watching. And now, I'm building the kind of company I needed when I was all 3. The cabin exhaled, the tension replaced by something steadier. Trust, one woman whispered to her seatmate. She's not just flying the plane, she's fixing the runway. Ryan lowered his gaze and turned to leave, but Amara stopped him. Ryan, he looked up. I don't forgive what you did, but I recognize what you just gave. You told the truth when you didn't have to. Let that be your start. Ryan nodded. Thank you. And with that, the door to the past finally closed. The new era of Starcrest aviation had begun, with real accountability, real reform, and no more shadows. The sun was just beginning to rise over Chicago when the final decisions were made. FAA officials, alerted through Starcrest's Emergency Ethics Division, opened formal inquiries into Claire, Brian, Lily, and Ryan. Their security clearances were revoked, flight certifications suspended, and digital flight records sealed pending review. Edward Vance's firm, already under light scrutiny for other internal misconduct, faced immediate audits tied to his onboard behavior and known prior complaints. Tara updated Amara over the phone as passengers quietly prepared to disembark. Edward's name has been pulled from 3 pending corporate contracts, she said. And his investor group just issued a distancing statement. His reputation's cracking. Amara didn't smile. It's not about breaking reputations, she said. It's about rebuilding standards, Tara replied. Well, you're doing both. A passenger across the aisle turned to Amara and said softly, You changed something tonight. You didn't just stop the injustice, you reset the whole culture. Amara turned to her with a nod. We all did. It took every voice in this cabin. Then she stood once more and addressed the remaining passengers. The crew is gone. The damage they did will be undone. But your presence here wasn't wasted. You witnessed truth. And because of that, Starcrest Aviation has been reborn. A quiet round of applause followed, gentle, grounded, not in celebration but in affirmation. It was Jade who spoke next, her voice steady but emotional. What happens now? Amara replied. We build the structure we always needed. We create space for everyone who's ever been treated like excess baggage in a seat they earned. This won't be performative. It will be permanent. Tara's voice returned. Legacy draft is ready. The Starcrest Equity Program will include annual live audits, random bias drills, and rotating passenger advisory panels. We've also added protections for guests flagged unfairly. Amara nodded. Add one more piece. For every documented case of mistreatment over the past 5 years, offer a direct apology and a voucher to return. Let fairness carry interest. Sanaa, still seated near the rear, looked stunned. You'd do that? Amara looked her way. Sana, the whole system failed you before you even stepped on board. You were profiled in silence. That's going to end. And not with a coupon, but with a conversation. And a flight that reminds you of your value. Sana's voice cracked. Then let this be the start. Amara stepped down the aisle and offered her a hand. Let's rewrite what it means to fly. Sana took it. No fanfare, just dignity. And then came the final twist. One whispered, almost lost in the shuffle. A retired pilot near the back of the cabin stood slowly. He looked weathered, but proud. His cap still tucked under one arm. Ms. Tate, he said. I trained Brian Holt 15 years ago. Back then. We logged every incident by hand. I remember 2 of his logs getting edited post-flight. I never proved it. But I always suspected. When I raised concern, I was told to let it go. Amara turned to him gently. What did you see? The man looked her in the eye. Not just cover-ups, a pattern, and it always involved young, black travelers being questioned harder, treated differently, denied without cause. He paused. It wasn't just Claire. Brian protected her for years. Amara nodded, not in shock, but in confirmation. Thank you for saying it out loud. Tara's voice returned. We've flagged Brian permanently. He won't touch another cockpit again. Amara exhaled, then turned to the cabin one last time. Humanity has to be louder than habit. That's the rule now. In 2026, Starcrest Aviation flew with a new soul. Gone were the performative policies and vague mission statements. In their place, real-time accountability, real leadership presence, and a rotating team of equity monitors who flew anonymously and reported truthfully. Crew diversity increased by 48%, and passenger satisfaction surpassed every prior year on record. Guests like Sana flew often and proudly, and in every terminal where a Starcrest jet waited, there was a plaque that read, "Justice is not policy, it's practice." As for Amara Tate, she never made another undercover flight. She didn't need to, because the systems she built were built to stand without her. And that was the point. In the end, legacy wasn't about the moment she fired the crew. It was about the culture she rewrote after they were gone. The passengers didn't just get a flight. They got a future, and the skies. They got a little more fair. If this story moved you, don't just scroll past. Leave a comment, let us know where you're watching from, and share your own moment of quiet power. Tap like if you believe dignity should never be questioned. And hit subscribe, because we've got more stories that speak truth, without needing to shout.